back, watch me jump.
Hi guys, welcome back to the next tutorial in this plugin overview of Remap, my plugin kit or set. I don't know how to explain it, but my name is Adrian and I am Tag Animations also, so let's get into this. That was a fail of the intro, but so basically here we see that I have the LightMap plugin, I have the test map again, and I have glowstone out because that is what we are going to be lighting today. So there is one requirement for this, although so you'll need the plugin, you'll need whatever you're gonna light inside your test map, so it's best to have that outside your test map, and you're gonna need to have the selections on whatever you're trying to light. You're gonna need that whole thing done with, and the easiest thing to do that with is with a plugin that was kind of help me through this, made by a French developer I met on a forum, and he said he would help me out by making a plugin specifically to help me with this stuff and to help a few others, but I asked him if he would help me out with something, and he made this plugin. So, and basically what it does is it can select the top of each face. So if we turn off our test map, you'll be able to get a better idea of what I'm talking about. So if we go to glowstone, you'll be able to see that all the top faces of each of the glowstones are and nothing else is selected. Now some people might be asking like, can't you just do this with your top mode, because in top view you can kind of get that same kind of thing, and normally I would say yes, but if we take something complicated like dirt, right? Or not dirt, because that doesn't have any top faces, but if we take something complex, I can't really see anything right now that's pretty complex, but basically this doesn't just do the top faces like in top mode. It can take the top faces, even if there's like an object under this polygon, it can take the top face of anything. So if all three of these had top faces and they were right under each other, it would still go through and select all the top faces. So it's not solely based on what the viewport can see, it's based off of everything that has a top face pretty much. So yeah, so that's really cool. It's really helpful. So basically what you have to do is you open up the plugin, it's called Selection Tool, and you go to select by polygon normal direction, and then you go to tolerance, and you put this to 10%, and then you click apply, and it will highlight all the top faces for you. And so I already did that, and basically I have it right here, and then what you have to do after that is click select and set selection, and you'll get this orange triangle right here that shows that you've done it correctly. And once you have these three things, the plugin, whatever you're trying to light, and your selection, you are ready to go. So let's get straight into this. We're going to be turning on our test map, and so first thing I put in the plugin, we don't have to worry about animation mode because this is just for speed, so your lag, so your viewport isn't laggy. When you're about to render, you click this on, so that way you get full detail and you'll be able to see your lights. With this turned on, you're not going to be able to see any lights or anything, so don't worry about that. So first thing we need is your object that you're lighting and the selection of the top faces. So we are going to do that right now. We are going to be lighting glowstone, so we're going to put that in. And you can see that something already happened. You already start to see that we have a few lights, but we don't have them for everything, which kind of sucks. And I'm going to turn off, I'm going to keep this as it is right now, so that way you can see the difference before you add in your selection. So basically I have this thing, we're going to skip a little bit of this for a second. I have this thing called light layers, and basically what this does is basically if you click one off, you'll be able to see that it kind of goes through and it starts to add more lights. And again, it's the same thing with the plant map plugin, basically to help with lag and stuff. And as you can see, it's pretty much doing a good job. I pretty much have everything lit, as you can see, but it's not as accurate as you would think. And to make it really accurate, the only way to really have it really be accurate is to add in your top faces. So once you add those in, it will be a little bit more accurate. It won't have to calculate as much. You're probably not going to see much of a difference, but it's best if you do that because, yeah, it helps. You probably won't notice with something like this, with a small map like this, but on a large scale map it does kind of do a difference. But sometimes you don't need this, so it just depends. You can just put in your object and see if it works, and if it does work, you don't really need to do the faces thing. That's just optional for some maps, because I know some maps do have problems with some of that. So with plant map and with LightMap is optional on the selection stuff, but it's best to do it just in case, because you never know. Okay, so once you do that, there's a couple of things that I have here, just the regular light settings, so you can change the color of your light. So we're going to change it to blue. You can change the type of light, and I will get into that a little bit later. So we're going to keep it on Omni Light. You can change the intensity just like in a regular light. And the visibility. So with visibility, basically, let's see, settings are good. Okay. So with visibility, basically that shows that you have this kind of look. Why is it only... For some reason, it only has this selected. Oh, because I don't have this. So we're going to check this off so that way everything is selected, and there we go. So you can see that visible light works best, and it's faster than volumetric. If we put this on something like volumetric, you'll see that it kind of takes a little bit longer. And again, depending on your scene, this could take really long. And it doesn't really provide that much of a nice effect, besides having like the little volumetric kind of castings. But I'll show you a better way to use volumetric light, so that way it doesn't really have this sort of effect. It kind of does it a little bit better. So we're gonna keep this on visible, and we're gonna turn this back to what it was. So we're gonna put on the default light, and basically the default kind of looks like that. And then we're gonna go, I want to show you that what emit light does. Don't worry about this, because I'm going to take this out in the final version. Basically, if you don't want any visible light, you just click none, and it will render with nothing. Emit light, basically, as you can see here, it's still emitting light, even though there's no volume or visible light. It's emitting light, so if you don't want it to emit light, you can turn that off, and then you'll have like a bland scene. This is using the default light, so if you don't have any lights in your scene, or they're all off, then it's automatically going to go to something like this. If we put visible lighting on, you'll be able to see that there's visible light, but there's no actual lights in your scene, like actual emission lights. So I know that might be it's sort of confusing, but if you play around with these two settings, you'll understand a little bit better. So we're going to put those to the default again. So we're going to have it emit light, and we're going to have it on visible light, and it looks like that. So that is good, and that is that. Next, we have something called advanced settings, and basically these are the settings that basically control your light, your different light settings. So if we mess with the fall off, you can see that there's this circle kind of growing large in our scene. If we put our display over to Guru shading, you'll be able to see this a lot better. If we adjust the fall off, that's how much light is being, cast. So if we render this, you'll be able to see there's much more light in the area that where the different lights are, than if there's, you know, if it's small like this, you'll see that there's only a tiny bit where those lights are. So this is a way to kind of set like a value to where how far your light can go. And yeah, that's that. Visibility distance, that's basically how far your actual light, like your visible light is. And you can really do some crazy stuff with this. So if I render this, you'll be able to see it's like it's burning up in here. I don't even know. Like, you know, if Herobrine just showed up right here, this would be his hell right here. So there's some really crazy things you can do with just these two. But visibility distance just controls the visible light. So if you turn this really low, you're not really going to see anything because the lights are inside the glowstone. So if you turn this just a tiny bit up, you should be able to see what I'm talking about. You can see that there's only like a tiny bit of light. So, but at default it's at 400 because that's a perfect thing right there. And visibility crispness, that deals with volumetric light. So those little rays of light, it basically makes those either really, really sharp or really, really smooth. So if you want really sharp, you do it, you know, really low, so like 0.50, something like that. If you want it really smooth, you put it on like 25 or something, and you're not really going to get so many lines. But I put it at 15 because that's a good medium between the two. And last for volumetric lighting is basically if you increase the brightness, that basically really amps up how bright the center of your lights are. So if we put this really low, you're going to see that the volumetric light is very subtle. If we put it, you know, even to like 2000, you'll be able to see that it's super bright. It's like a Kamehameha wave or something. So you can kind of like animate this and make it, you know, really cool. So yeah. So we're gonna put this to default too. I'm not gonna go over omni-scaling because it's not, I mean, it's functional, but I have to fix some of the values. Basically, this is basically if you're trying to, let me show you an example. So if I get a normal light like this, and I go to, and I turn it to a visible light, so it has the circle around it. Basically what it does is you can kind of make your lights a little bit customized. You can customize your lights so that way they look maybe like a sort of ray or something. Besides being like just a circle, it can look oval. You can, you know, so this would be good for something like lava or something. Like if lava is pouring down like at this kind of angle or something, you want it kind of long and large or something. So that's for that, and I will be fixing that for the final, so you don't have to worry about that. So let me get into these noise settings, and then I'll come back up to spotlight settings, just so that way it's easier. It's an easier transition. So with noise is really cool because you can kind of put like a noise pattern onto your light, and that it can affect either illumination or visibility or both. So usually I put it on both, and basically what it's gonna do is if you put this to like soft turbulence or noise or whatever, and you render, you'll be able to see that it renders a little bit slower, but you can see a little bit that there's less, it kind of varies on how much light is being emitted in certain areas. If we turn up the brightness a little bit, you should be able to see that a little bit better. You can see that it's a little bit, it's like foggy-ish. It's the same thing that my furnace uses. So if you look at my furnace, you can see that it kind of looks like there's some smoke and stuff. And this can be animated, wind direction, wind speed, it's automatically animated. So if you were to animate this, or if you were to make an animation and put on noise or whatever, it would automatically be animated. If you don't want it animated, you can just put 0 here for wind speed and it won't do anything, but automatically it's already on one, just in case you wanted animated. So that's really cool. It's like a smoke thing, and basically you can have it do illumination or visibility. You can do either one, but for me both looks best. Sorry, tongue twister. So yeah. So now we're gonna go on to light settings. We're gonna go to spotlight, and you can see that it totally changes the way your scene is presented. So we're gonna go to quick shading so we can see this better. So now you can see that all your lights have been turned into spotlights, and if we render that right now, you'll be able to see that everything's just pointing this way and shining the light. That's really cool. Not really. So basically, for spotlight settings, I have this thing. I have it set to 45 degrees automatically because that is a very nice degree, and it's not too wide or not too small, but you can change it up to like 180 or something, and you'll kind of get the same effect as Omnilight. Except if you look at it from the side, it's not really the same because it's only doing like a circular pattern, but you can change the angle that it's at. So if you want it super small, like a tiny little beam, you can get that too. So now it's like a tiny beam. So that's really cool if you're trying to do like a laser effect or something like that. That's how you do it. So we're gonna change that back to 45. And down here I have Flair Settings. They don't currently work yet, or as of now, but I will get this to work in the future, and target stuff, I will get that to work in the future also. These things do not work as of yet, but I will try to fix them best I can before the final release. So that's that. So next we're gonna go into light layers and controls. Now these might be put in light settings for ease of access when you're trying to set up your stuff, but for right now they're right here. But in the final release I might move them over to this tab because it's a little bit easier. Now for this tab, I have something called Make Rotation Controllers, and basically what that does is you can see that all your lights are kind of just stationary. They're only in one position, and that might frustrate a lot of people, because what if you want it face down or something, or you want to turn them away or even animate them? There is no way to do that, as you can see right here. So I put in a feature where you can do that to a certain degree with this. So if I wanted to make there we go. Okay, so if I wanted to make a controller, so I want this cube to control maybe a group of lights, then I put the cube here and I turn this on. So basically now what I have is I can rotate this cube, make sure you're in object mode. I can rotate this cube and it will rotate a group of lights. Sadly, it will not rotate, you can't individualize a lot of things. I have to make things in groups or else it gets really tedious. But you can individualize certain groups and animate the way they are just with a simple cube. And if I wanted that cube to control more than one layer, then I put them for, group 1 through 4, and now groups 1 through 4 are animated or are controlled using this cube. And you can do that all throughout, and you can use different cubes to animate different things. So if I wanted this cube to animate a certain thing and I wanted this cube to animate a certain group, you can do that too. So say you have your controllers like this and maybe something's not working out. What you would do to reset, you want to reset the position. I have an easy solution that can do that, and plus some. So first of all, you don't have to reset these unless you want to, but these don't have to be reset. You just have to turn these off. Always make sure you turn these off at least, and you come down here to reset PSR. And basically what you can do is you can hit the reset switch and everything is going to go back to default. But if you want things to maybe change their position, so if I wanted everything to reset to 90 degrees, I can do that. So now every time I reset this, it's going to go to 90 degrees. If I wanted them to reset at 45, I could do that too. Reset at 45. And this is really cool. So remember when I told you guys that there's a way to kind of fix the way for volumetric light to come out of here. So if you look at this, you can tell that the lights are inside of the glowstone. So if you do want to set volumetric light, it's not going to go properly because it's being blocked by this glowstone. So a way to fix that would be to put position reset to maybe something like 100 or something like that, something where it's out of the way of the glowstone, but it's still near the glowstone or something, and you'll be able to see that now you're getting more of this effect where it's outside of the glowstone and stuff. And you can just do really cool things with this. You can even, I don't know if you can animate this exactly because you would have to animate the switch, but as far as I know, you can just move the position, and that's pretty much all you can do. So sadly, that is everything you can do with that, but it should be very helpful if you're trying to reset everything and everything looks really hectic at the moment. Okay, so we've gone over advanced light settings, light layers and controls, and then now time to get into the really fancy stuff. So if you've ever wanted to have your things animate automatically, this would be a way. Just remember that you have to have your manual settings, these things. You have to have these things turned off in order to use things. So it's either one or the other. You can either have manual controls, or you can either have animation controls. So just remember that for the future. It's either one or the other. You can't have both, sadly. So enable position. That basically animates the position of all of them. They are varied. So if I put this to maybe 100, 100, 100, you'd be able to see this. 100, 100. So as you can see, each group has its own kind of rotation, its own position, and its own scale. So it kind of helps with everything being varied, and it doesn't look the same. So I added this because I know a lot of people want individualism between their objects, but you're not going to be able to really get that, without something like this. So by adding groups, it kind of helps with that. As you can see, it's really hardly noticeable that some of these are the same groups or anything. They all kind of look different, and that's the whole purpose of this. You can also have the scale be animated, so I don't know why you would use this, but if you want to use it, you can use it. I don't judge. So always make sure to, when you're doing this though, you have to reset the scale. So you can do that and it would reset the scale for you. And last but not least, you can have rotation animated, which is a big plus because rotation with spotlights is a biggie, a huge big thing. So you can have the rotation animated and everything's just gonna animate. There's no way to really position things so that way it animates in a certain way. You're just gonna have to deal with how random it is at the moment. If I figure anything out for the animation stuff, maybe something that's very helpful, I might add it in the future, but for the time being, this is the best I can do. So I'm so sorry. So if we turn that off, you can see everything's all jumbled. We hate jumbled, so we're gonna reset that. Bam, done. Okay, last but not least, we have variation and randomness. Project doesn't work at the moment. Basically, what it's supposed to do is help you exclude certain items. So if you didn't want this map to be lit by your lights, basically you would drag in your map, but that's not working at the moment, so I will fix that in final release. So variation and random, if you choose to use this, which I don't know why you would use this, but let's just say you do, you can do this too. So if we put on position, randomness, it's gonna give us a random position. Simple as that. Can't really control how it's being done. Again, same thing with animation. You're just gonna have to deal with, if you do intend to use this, you're just gonna have to set it up so it works for you. This is a way where you can kind of animate things manually, but again, everything's gonna be super random, so you're not gonna have a say in where everything's gonna be positioned at. A really good thing though to have is the rotation though, so you could have random rotation. It's just pretty much best this. I tried to implement everything I could into this. Even features that I feel aren't necessary, I tried to implement in this. So, hopefully somebody uses something, even the features that aren't implemented. But if you play around, you might be able to have a fun time with this. And you can also do scaling, although I wouldn't do that because it looks really funky. Like if I rendered this right now, it'd look crazy. Actually, it looks kind of cool, but it looks crazy still. So I don't know. Don't judge. Okay, so and that's pretty much the light plugin. I think the coolest thing you can do is just have it on Omni, and then have the visible on, just the defaults. There is last thing I wanted to go over. Basically, I have 3 types of lights. One's called photometric, and I won't go into that really because it's kind of a long topic, and I don't have the materials for it right now. But photometric light is basically adding in data from real light manufacturers into Cinema 4D, so it actually uses like real life light data. And if you go over to advanced settings, I have a photometric settings tab, and basically you put the data into here, you put this on, and you can change the data and stuff. If you need any advice on that, I'm going to have a tutorial in the description for that. And it should be really helpful because there's a lot of information on that, but it looks really cool. And I might just do a quick tutorial on it later on, but not anything related to my plugins though. So that is the light plugin, the LightMap plugin. I hope you enjoyed this section of the tutorial because this is probably the longest, but probably the most fun as far as what you can do with the LightMap plugin. And it really does show you that things don't have to be as hard as replacing everything. You can really get some really nice effects just with this plugin alone. So I hope you enjoyed this, and stay tuned for the last part of the series with my block map plugin. So thanks guys, see you in the next tutorial. Bye!